not uncommon for old insane asylums or old buildings with a lot of history to be haunted. A lot of the tragedies which took place in the days of operation will be replayed over and over, and many of the souls of the people involved being kept in a residual energy, reliving their days there in a constant loop. One of the most haunted in Michigan, known as the Traverse City State Hospital, is not only a haunted building itself, but it also has a cursed tree which sits on the property, covered in graffiti. This tree is said to be a portal to hell and haunted by the spirits of patients who escaped. Anyone who dares walk around it in a certain pattern will be doomed to hell, along with the souls who haunt it.
Hey there, Morbid Maniacs. It's time for another spooky video, a part of VLOGTOBER. And for tonight's spooky video, I'm going to be talking all about the Michigan Asylum and the Hippee Tree. Before I get into this video, my friend Becca actually recommended that I make a video on this. She lives in Michigan and she told me a little bit about the legend, and I really loved it whenever I did research for it. So I decided that I was gonna film a video for it for Vlogtober. Located in Traverse, Michigan, it all began with an asylum. The asylum was known as the Traverse City State Hospital, and otherwise known as the Northern Michigan Asylum. The Michigan Asylum was established in 1881 by James Decker Munson and Perry Hanna. The news of the hospital being placed in the area broke after demand for a third asylum. In 1882, Detroit architect Gordon W. Lloyd was picked to design the building, and construction would begin in April of 1883. The building was crafted with hand tools, but was completed within 3 years. It would take over 135 acres of land, and this also provided room for a working farm. The hospital would open in 1885 and would receive its first patients in November of that year, housing only 43 patients at the time. However, its patient population would grow to be much larger. This is because it served 39 counties in Michigan. More buildings and rooms were eventually built on. In the 1890s, the hospital would arrange its patients by gender and severity of their illness. And unlike most hospitals and mental asylums back then, this hospital did not want to use harmful tactics as ways of healing their patients. Straitjackets and shock therapy were both prohibited from the building. They would take a more friendly approach. Best care needed for their patients was being outside in nature, surrounded by gardens, farmland, fresh flowers, and natural light. They believed this would help relax the patients and soon heal them of their illnesses. It included farming, furniture construction, fruit canning, and other ways of work for its patients. It also included a working farm which had its very own chickens, pigs, and cows, which the hospital would use for meats and milk. It treated patients sick with tuberculosis, typhoid fever, influenza, and polio. It also cared for the elderly and served as a rehab facility for drug addicts. It would also train nurses. The hospital was shut down in 1989 after drug therapies developed, and patients were moved to smaller group homes in the mid-20th century. It served for over 103 years. Not long after, the hospital would be left abandoned, and after a decade of setting, it would soon be saved by a man with the name of Ray Minervini. Ray would turn the hospital into a series of restaurants, shops, and apartments, which was known as the Grand Traverse Commons. Since then, the Traverse City State Hospital is known to be one of the most haunted hospitals in the state of Michigan. One story speaks of a doctor who was employed at the hospital. This doctor murdered several of his patients throughout the years, including 2 nurses. And the hospital chaplain would end up unaliving himself by hanging in the chapel of the building, and many claim to still see his apparition in the same room he took his own life. Religious objects are said to be destroyed before they even get the chance of entering the building. Many who visit the old asylum will experience disembodied voices, footsteps, lights flickering on and off in unwired buildings, or feeling a cold presence. Some will also experience dizziness and nausea. Construction workers would even get spooked after seeing a shadow figure or figures behind them and would later refuse to return to work. Apparitions of adults and children alike have been spotted within the building. Witnesses often see figures in old white hospital gowns roaming the halls and rooms. The laundry room is known to be a hot spot for activity. Many people who have visited described a feeling of being watched. Doors are known to slam without any wind. Investigators and reporters will replay audios recorded in the hospital, only to hear loud voices which insisted that they leave. It was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1978 as one of the few Kirkbride buildings to remain in existence in the United States. But perhaps one of the darkest legends surrounding the hospital is that of the underground tunnel. This tunnel sits beneath the hospital. Many have claimed to have seen a disfigured creature which roams throughout the tunnel. The tunnel is also said to permeate an aura of mystery and eeriness. However, this isn't the only popular legend involving the Michigan Asylum. Located on the property of the hospital, there sits a tree in the woods off on a little trail, which is known as the Hippee Tree. This tree is an old willow tree which is completely covered from head to toe in colorful graffiti. And it's believed that many visionaries, mystics, and other spiritual people would come and sit beneath this tree and meditate. And they would receive visions which they would then paint on the tree. Legend states that a long time ago, when the hospital was in operation, there were 2 patients who were best friends. One night, these 2 planned to escape, and they ended up doing so through the underground tunnel. What they didn't know, however, was that there was another patient who had also escaped from the hospital who was a lot more dangerous than they were. The boys would come face to face with him. They played in the tunnel and around the tree, and as they were playing, one of the friends noticed that his friend was gone. He just disappeared, and they would later find the young boy's remains at the Hippee Tree. It's said that the dangerous patient had found the young boy and murdered him. He then buried his remains in a spring nearby. And the other legend to the story is that the doctor who murdered several of his patients during the operations of the hospital, that some of these patients actually haunt the Hippee Tree. Today, visitors report an ominous feeling around the tree and believe it to be haunted by the young patients of the mental hospital. Those who visit the tree will hear disembodied voices in the distance and have stones and rocks thrown at them. It's also believed to be a portal to hell. The portal is said to lie beneath its twisted roots, which spiral all over the ground around it. It's said that if a person walks around the tree in a specific pattern, not jumping or crawling over any limbs, that you will be transported to hell, joining the doomed inmates. Another legend states that anyone who has done evil or wicked deeds in their life and just so happens to walk around the Hippee Tree that it will swallow them up. So there is the legend of the Michigan Asylum and the Hippee Tree. What do you guys think of this creepy story? Have you ever visited there? Becca, I would love to know if you've ever visited this asylum or visited the Hippee Tree. If anything spooky happened to you while you were there, please let me know. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a big old thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you have not already and become a morbid maniac. Also, be sure to hit that bell notification. That way you get notified every single time I upload a new video. And also be sure to head on over to my second channel, Mel Vlogs, where I will be posting all of my vlogs, all of my other random videos. And I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one.